YouTube, what's going on? Week 1 is in the books. We've seen some good. We've seen some bad. We saw the Bengals. Let's see if we can help you out, though, with the waiver wires leading into week 2. All right. For this fun thought exercise, we're going to use Yahoo, but obviously there's ESPN, there's Sleeper, there's Fantrax. There's so many other fantasy sites out there. I'm just grabbing ESPN because this is a standard league that I've got going, a redraft that I've done for years and years and years, and these are the guys that are sitting out here on waivers. Now, I'm going to try to throw some things in for you Dynasty guys as well, because I know that some folks are going to be asking about that as well. Starting with quarterbacks. Obviously, we see Taysom Hill sitting here on the top. I don't touch Taysom Hill anywhere. If he's available, I'm not going after him. Not a guy that you can trust on a week-to-week basis. He's going to have boom weeks. He's going to have bust weeks, but unless you're in a best ball, you're never going to be able to predict it. As we go through these other guys, we've got Bo Nix, we've got Justin Fields, we've got Sam Darnold, we got Bryce Young, we got Russell Wilson, Minshew Jones, Drake May. You know, the only guys on the quarterback side of things, if these guys are available, that I'd be looking at, Sam Darnold and most likely Bo Nix. Sam Darnold for sure, because you can tell this could be the revenge tour that we've been waiting for. He looked good in this offense. Obviously, he's going against a Giants team, or win against a Giants team that's been struggling. He's going to continue to have these same weapons at his disposal, though, and TJ Hawkinson will be back sooner rather than later. So Sam Darnold is a guy that could continue to improve as the season goes on. A veteran that knows the offense. Of the guys that are available, he's probably the one that I would trust the most. And then Bo Nix would be the next guy, because I think he'll get better as the year goes on. As you go a little bit further down, there are guys that could potentially, as the season goes on, get value. But for week 2, the only one I'm truly spending any money on is Sam Darnold. And that's probably, depending on your budget at least, probably somewhere in the 5 to 10% of your budget. I would be willing to throw at a guy like that. All right, moving over to the running back side of things, we have, obviously, some of these guys will be rostered in your leagues. I know, I can see it in the comments already. I've been doing this for years. Guys are going to be rostered. I get it. Some of these guys won't, though. This league that I'm in is 12 teams, and some of these guys are not rostered. I didn't touch Chuba just because I'm not entirely sure exactly what we're going to get out of that offense as they're continuing to learn what Dave Canales is trying to do. Chuba's a guy that should be rostered most likely, but he's not a trustable starter on a week-to-week basis just yet. Same goes with Dowdle. You know, Dallas's offense is going to roll through the passing game. They want to run, but clearly Zeke is the guy they're going to start with. I think Rico gets sprinkled in more as the year goes on, but you always got to think about Dalvin Cook's in the wings there. He's learning the playbook, getting up to speed. When is he going to start getting involved? So for me, I'm looking at, Jaleel McLaughlin from Denver. They like him there. Now, obviously, he didn't produce an insane amount, but he got double-digit touches. He got some involvement in the passing game. Certainly a guy that I would definitely look to roster. I'm not spending much more than maybe 1% or 2 on my fab on him, though, but somebody that I would want on my roster. Some other players that I would definitely consider getting on your roster just because of how their offenses are going to use them. Justice Hill and Tank Bigsby. You're seeing this on all the major platforms. Everybody's saying grab them. I would go Bigsby before I go Justice Hill, though. Justice Hill get used in the passing game some, but not only we've heard this story before with Hill, but they have Keaton Mitchell that'll be coming back from injury. They're going to use other running backs in the passing game as well. So I wouldn't be throwing everything I've got at Justice Hill. I would rather take a chance on Tank Bigsby. This is a guy coming out of college that looked really good and obviously went to an offense that already had Travis Etienne, but he's a guy that they are going to continue to keep working in his offense because he can handle it. We saw 12 touches in the last game, and he looked good doing it. He actually outproduced Etienne to some degree. So these are 2 guys that I would definitely be going after. Kenneth Gainwell from Philly's and a guy you can keep your eye on, and even Pierre Strong in Cleveland. But those are guys that are further down in their depth charts that I'm not jumping all over just yet. I would rather target a guy like a Tank Bigsby and go from there. But if your league looks different than this, if you're not seeing some of these players, post your league in the comments. Post some questions in the comments. I am constantly watching our YouTube and will gladly answer every question I can. All right, now we move on to the wide receivers, and we saw Allen Lazard get involved, right? He got 2 touchdowns, definitely more garbage time production than anything, but certainly a guy you can consider rostering, but know that Mike Williams is coming back from injury, so he's going to get involved. So this is one of those where I'm not looking to spend my money necessarily on even the top couple producers. So, you see me here, I have it sorted by fantasy points just so you can see, so we can talk through some of these things. But Alec Pierce, Allen Lazard, these are guys that I'm not going to jump all over immediately. I'd rather target some guys a little bit further down. A Greg Dortch in Arizona. He's got the trust of his quarterback. They're going to get him involved. He's doing some things there. Tyler Johnson from the Rams. Matthew Stafford is a guy that's sprinkling the ball around. And with Puka out, Tyler Johnson's a guy that it appears as though this team trusts enough to get involved when they need him. Even a little bit further down, think about a Jerry Jeudy got a little bit more involved. I'm not spending, if I'm spending money on a wide receiver, I'm spending 2 or 3% of my budget on a Tyler Johnson, or, maybe 2 or 3% even on Alec Pierce or Alan Lazard. I'm not spending much of my budget on any of these receivers. Even Jerry Jeudy and Greg Dortch. I mean, Greg Dortch might be the one that I spend the most on, and that's 5% or less of my budget. I'm not looking to spend every penny I have right now, because as the season goes on, injuries are going to happen. Things are going to happen where you're going to need a little bit of that money to spend. So don't just go spending it all week one and getting crazy. Think about some of these other players. If you can stash them for cheap or free, Xavier Legette from Carolina, Jalen McMillan from Tampa Bay. These are guys that could continue to get involved more. Even your Jalen Nailers from Minnesota, if they can sustain more than 2 receivers, maybe he starts getting a little bit more value. I know that he had a touchdown. I'm not jumping on him just yet, but these are things you have to think through as you're deciding how to spend your money, because you only have a certain amount for the year. All right, moving over to the tight end side. This is a guy that you've heard me talk about here on the channel on our Thursday night show. Chig Okonkwo from Tennessee is a guy that I've been telling you to get. I know he only had 2 catches, only got 15 yards and a touchdown, but he's a guy that I could see as kind of the safety net in this offense for Will Levis. Definitely somebody I would have on my roster, even if he's not your weekly starter. Definitely comfortable with him as your depth. And then these New Orleans tight ends, I mentioned Juwan Johnson, but if you can get a share of either of them, they certainly both have the opportunity to be involved. I know Foster Moreau, there's concern about being in the concussion protocol, things like that. So Johnson would be the guy I target first if he's available, then Foster Moreau, but another one I told you to get in one of our shorts, if you watch, is Noah Gray from Kansas City. I know they just re-signed him to a 3-year contract. He got involved in game 1. Obviously, I'd said that he had outperformed Travis Kelce by 3 yards, but still by something. These are guys that you can trust as nice depth pieces that maybe as the year goes on, or maybe in a pinch in flex situations, you can use them knowing that they'll get some targets, because something's better than a 0. If you don't have a strong number 2, even going after, if you want to. And one of the other things I like to do when I'm looking at waivers, and maybe you didn't get to watch every second of every game, you can look at how many times a guy was targeted, and you can see the Rams use Colby Parkinson quite a bit. Maybe he's a guy that you can stash at the back of your roster. Cincinnati, I know Cincinnati looked bad week 1. This isn't the Cincinnati team we're going to see at the end of the year. They're going to get better. Burrow's coming back from injury, things like that. So these are things you have to think through. What guys are getting targeted? Maybe you stash them at your back of your roster for free, because I can't imagine people are going to spend a ton on them. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't think I forgot about you kickers and defenses, guys. There's leagues that still do it. I have a couple that still do it. It's not common these days, or not nearly as common as it used to be. I play the matchups, so we're starting to see things here. Pittsburgh is probably going to be kicking a lot of field goals because their offense is moving the ball, but maybe not getting a ton of touchdowns. Who knows? Maybe that changes when Russell Wilson comes back, because we're going to presume that he's a starter when healthy. Another one, basically any of these high-powered offenses that scored a bunch in week 1 in terms of what their kickers scored, sure, take a shot on them. Why not? I would lean on the ones that have the more trusted offenses that maybe are going to move the ball better than others. So Tampa Bay, I'm going to trust. New Orleans should be better. So this, maybe not 26 points a week, but these are the types of things I'm looking for. I'm looking for those offenses that are going to move the ball pretty well and get you into field goal range with the potential for a kick, like anybody else is going to do. But when it comes to your kickers and defenses, I'm always playing matchups. Who's got the juicy matchup each week? So when it comes to kickers, you can take these top guys. Why not? Cairo Santos, I would expect, he's a trusted kicker. He's a guy that, when it comes to these guys, these are all fairly trustable kickers. McLaughlin might be the least trustable of these 4, but these are all guys that I would certainly be fine having on my roster if my kicker didn't do as well in week 1. Same goes with your defenses. Look at your matchups. This week we've got juicy ones. The Chargers are going against Carolina. That's probably my must-start defense of the week. They're going to get some points. They got points week 1 against Vegas. They got another juicy matchup with Carolina. Until we know who Carolina is, until they develop more, why not? The same goes with a team like Jacksonville. Jacksonville is probably one of those teams where I'm going to look to start their defense this week, because Watson they just haven't figured it out yet, and they haven't been able to get it back together. He's still coming back from injury. They're still trying to get this line healthy, and there's just so many questions and things that are still being unanswered in Cleveland, that why not take a shot that this defense is going to do better than it did in week 1 against Miami. So like I said, this is what we're looking at on the waiver wires in a fairly standard league. If you have questions, post them below. Post your leagues below. Jump in our Discord and ask questions. We are here to help. DraftCountdown.com. I'll talk to you next week.